So how excited are we, Marnie, to spotlight our amazing expert today who happens to be on our team, Carolyn Flora. Oh my gosh, Carolyn, thanks for being here today. And beyond thank you, like thank you for being the expert that you are in our team every single day. It's like Merry Christmas to us, right, Marnie?
Absolutely.
You are too sweet. Thank you so much.
No,
I'm excited to be here. Great topic, lots of great information. Really excited.
And the reality is that if you are either in elementary school, middle, or high school, small group instruction is where it's at. Especially now, Carolyn, that we're on again, we're off again, we're on again, we're off again. You know, are we in person? Are we virtual? So I would love for you all that are jumping in here to introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us where you're from, and tell us, are you online or are you in person? I know that's a weird question, but we'd love to know, right, Carolyn?
Well, you know what? I was going to say, we should probably preface that with this very minute. Are you online or are you in person? Because I just received an email from my kiddo school saying that as of Monday, we're going back to hybrid. And that's through Christmas break, and then they'll make a decision. So.
My goodness, it's a never ending, it's just like, what's going to happen today? You know, you draw the token and you're okay. Today is virtual. Today is in person. Yeah. Well, so to be honest, it's just timely, isn't it? Like this small group instruction. So it's timely, whether it is in person, hybrid, totally online. This is such a timely topic. For the month of December, especially. I think we're all a little tired. Started this in March, and we might just all be a little tired. So small group better than large group in my thought process right now.
Absolutely.
Everyone in the chat so far has been remote, and we've got kindergarten remote even on here, but everybody said remote so far.
Wow. Well, hopefully everybody's staying healthy, because that is the key. That's why we're all remote. So just a thrill. Well, you know what, Carolyn, I think we're just about 3 minutes over our start time here. And I think that if you want to just dive right in and tell us all about small group instruction from that elementary school standpoint, I think we'd love to just get started. Unless, Marnie, you have another comment before we get started?
No, let's go.
All right.
Absolutely. Well, of course, I'm going to start off with some introductions first, just to make sure that everybody knows who we are and why we're here and how we are here to support them. So we are Grand Canyon Professional Development, PD with a Purpose. So excited to be here to support everyone who is with us on this webinar. As I look down at everybody's names, I'm so excited to see some people who I have had the privilege of providing other professional development opportunities for. So it is wonderful to be here. Right here, we have our wonderful team. Look, we have Shonda highlighted. I think that was from a previous webinar, but she is our wonderful ops person. So here's our team. Our specific professional development team consists of myself and 3 other wonderful ladies you see up here in the corner. And you already met Corey. Corey, did you want to tell them a little bit about yourself? You're good?
Not today. I think this is your show. Right. Go for it.
Perfect. And my name is Carolyn Flora. I am the K-12 Outreach and Support Program Manager at Grand Canyon Education. I have over 23 years in education, I have taught every single grade, K through 8. I was a Title I teacher, a reading coach, a district ELA coach, and then before coming to Grand Canyon, I spent some time as a professional learning consultant for a large textbook company. So needless to say, I've gotten my feet wet in a couple of different areas, and that's why I love the opportunity to share with teachers and just share what I've learned over the years. So as we get started, what I'd like you to do is, as we're going over this information, be thinking about what you're going to take away today. As a teacher, I am with you. I understood, or as an administrator, you want something tangible, something you can take away, use in your classroom right away, a resource you can share with your teachers to make a difference immediately. So at the end of our session, we'll talk a little bit about what some of those things are. Instead of asking a particular person to be a tool master, I'm going to ask everybody at the end to go ahead and pop something in to the chat if that works for everybody. Okay, here we go. So we always like to start off our PD with a quote, and I thought this one was very appropriate. So a flexible, resilient pedagogy finds the overlap between what's sustainable for teachers and what's best for kids. Okay, this was written by a national board certified teacher herself. She's provided lots of great professional development and information for teachers. This really resonated with me as I was thinking about small group instruction. I've been fortunate enough to work with teachers all over the United States, and as I go around and when I've talked to them and I've tried to help them implement small groups, I know that one of the concerns always was the fact that they were a bit overwhelmed by the thought of providing small group instruction. Sometimes they perceived it as multiple lesson plans or difficulty with classroom management. When we're talking about a virtual environment, a lot of those problems are solved on their own, but it's so important to remember that above and beyond everything, we have to make sure that whatever we're doing with our students, it's sustainable, right? We're going to keep it up, we're going to make it work, and that it's best for our kids. And I'm sure that there's nobody here who wouldn't agree that small group instruction is definitely a best practice when it comes to teaching. So to get started, our objectives for today, we're just going to talk a little bit about small group and identify why it's so critical in the virtual classroom environment, even equally, if not a tiny bit more than in person. We're going to understand the importance of utilizing small groups, not only to teach, but to listen and learn. And then last but not least, we're going to learn how to prepare for small groups with a purpose, because we know that we have to be very intentional, and that is when we are going to see the most growth. So just to get us started, I'm going to share a little personal story. I love this picture. It just, it is just so applicable. So this is our Zoom or Teams elementary classroom. You see everybody there talking. My chair fell over. This is my dad's shoe. You know, kiddos, when they're virtual, they miss that interaction. It's very difficult. And I watched my personal daughter, she's a 5th grader, and she started the year out virtually, and she had a couple of newer teachers who were doing a fantastic job. But rightfully so, I listened in, and they were a bit overwhelmed because although they had stated the rules to when and when not to come off mute, students were just popping in here and there. And one teacher, I know she was so overwhelmed, implemented a rule that everyone was going to be on mute, and they were only going to come off mute when she took them off. And although I could feel her pain, I was thinking, oh my goodness, how many of these kids are zoning out? How many of these kiddos aren't getting an opportunity to say really important things or add really important information to the conversation? And right away in my head, I went to, why is she not using small group instruction, right? Instead of trying to conduct a 50-minute lesson with the whole class via Zoom. And what we're going to talk about today, you're going to see how that experience could have been very different for her as well as her students. So first of all, let's consider why we would use small group instruction in a virtual environment. Well, we all know, right? Students need differentiated instruction. It doesn't matter if you're in person or if you're virtual. All of our students are not at the same level. With the situation we are currently in, we are finding, and I'm sure all of you are finding, that the gaps are even larger, right? Our students were home for a long time. The end of the year last year wasn't so smooth, and they have those deficits. So we need to make sure we are meeting the specific needs of each student, and we can't do that with a one-size-fits-all. Next, we're going to think about this really important piece. Informal teacher observation, okay? As a teacher in the classroom, think back to your experience. If you're an administrator, your experiences right now. When we're in the classroom with our students, there is so much informal observing going on as you walk around the classroom, as you talk to your students. You are constantly doing formative assessments. You are constantly doing a pulse check to figure out what your kids are understanding. You can tell by their posture, by their facial expressions, so many ways to determine how they're doing. In a virtual environment, we don't have that luxury a lot of the time, especially if our students say are maybe on Zoom, but we have to turn off our cameras for bandwidth purposes, etc. So we don't have that opportunity, and we really don't have that opportunity when we're trying to conduct only whole large group instruction. When we're thinking about small group instruction, that can change. And then last but not least, my favorite, one of several actually perks about virtual instruction is that when you're doing small groups, you have almost eliminated that classroom management issue, right? It's not like you're sitting at your kidney table with a group of students and you're looking out and you're hearing all their voices. We have so many different ways that we can structure our small groups virtually that we don't have to worry about that piece, which was, like I said, one of the major worries of many teachers who I spoke with.
Carolyn, I hear you saying classroom management, and I will say at the high school level, that seemed to be such an issue, and also at the elementary in person. But can you talk to me about small group and maybe like engage? I mean, classroom management online is almost like, how do you get them engaged? Small group is really important for that too, right?
Absolutely. So I do a lot of PD on classroom management. And it's funny, even when I go in person or when I'm online, first thing people automatically think of is that I'm going to talk about what rules are in place, you know, expectations, things like that. And those are things that we come to, but always the first thing I want to know is, what is your engagement like, right? Because we know if students are engaged, behavior, you see much more positive behavior, right? Like I always like to say, if you don't give them something to do, they're going to find something to do, and it's probably not going to be what you want. And that goes hand in hand with online instruction as well. Even more so, because think of all of the distractions around them. They're surrounded by animals, by family members. Some kids, you know, they're all sharing a computer, maybe brother or sister saying, it's my turn, it's my turn. There are so many pieces to that puzzle that we need to make sure that we are utilizing something such as small groups to make sure that we have their more focused attention, and we're able to give them more of our attention.
Love it. Thank you.
Sure. So as we get started, I'm going to start off with a Slido. For those of you who aren't familiar with Slido, Slido is a free online tool, one of my favorites. All you need in order to create a Slido account is an email, and you create a password, and you are good to go. So there are several different templates you can use. One I'm using right now is actually called like a rating, but they have short answer, question and answer, like a quiz format. One of my favorites are the word webs. So there are a lot of different options. So right now you have two ways that you can get over to Slido.
And one way is already in the chat, Carolyn, so they've already got it in there. So that is awesome. And you can see that I've got my phone here. I'm just taking a picture of the QR code, folks. So just take that, any phone, you could just click on the camera button and take a picture of the QR code, and it'll take you right on over to this awesome polling software that Carolyn's got for us today.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And so as you show up here, oh, you know what, let me go ahead, and I skipped, there we go. There we go. I was on the wrong question. So you'll see, I sort of showed you a little bit ahead of time here. I have actually two questions, two Slido polls that I'm going to be sharing with you today. And I had the second one pulled up, but now here we have the first one. So it says, on a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable are you with implementing small group instruction in the virtual classroom? 1, not comfortable at all, or 5, I can do it in my sleep. So let's just see how everybody feels at this point. One thing I really love about Slido, wonderful tool to use in the virtual classroom. If you look right up here on your screen, you see the number right now, it says 008. That tells me how many participants have navigated over to Slido and answered the question. And you know, as teachers in the classroom, it's great to know, because then we can say, okay, I know I have 20 kids, only 15 have answered so far. I need to give it another minute or two. So wonderful piece of information there. One question I often get about Slido is, well, but I don't know who puts what answer. For this particular template, the rating template, you don't. However, there are other ones. For example, the short answer. You can ask, I train my kiddos and teachers who I work with, I say, make sure you put your name before your answer so that I am able to document who shared which answer. However, something like this is a great pulse check, right? Really a way to find out how kiddos are feeling without putting them on the spot. Then you get a better idea about how to guide your instruction. So right now, when looking at what we have about 15 answers here, and we can see that we have 44% of people who are right in the middle there, which is good. It means that you've contemplated it, you've probably given it a shot, but maybe you haven't perfected it. So hopefully today, some of the tips I share with you will help you do that. So over here, I have a few people who are not feeling really comfortable at this point, and you know what? We're going to get you started as well. And then look at my experts over here. You need to hop off mute, and you definitely need to chime in or share some stuff in the chat to help me through this, because it sounds like you'll have lots of great information to share as well. So I'm going to really quickly navigate to the back of the house with Slido so I can show you what it looks like. Okay. So after I do the poll, I have access to it back here. So I can come up here, I can see my results, and it allows me to export it if I want. I know a lot of times I just take snippets or screenshots of it so that I can refer to it later, or I can always come back online here, depending on how long I have the poll open for, and check the answers that we had previously. I might want to come back at the end of our 3-day session together and have you do this again and compare how you're feeling about small group instruction. Okay. Any questions about Slido? You're welcome to ask at this point before I move on. I know Marnie and Corey, they're really experts, so they'd be able to give you some great background information. Okay, here we go. So as we get started and we're thinking about small group instruction in the virtual classroom, the first thing, and I'm going to go into more detail about this right away because I don't want to give you the wrong idea, is to keep things similar to what you do in person in regard to small group instruction. With saying that, I am not one to say replicate what you do in the classroom in every aspect virtually. What I mean by this is, if you had a certain hand gesture that you used when you were asking your kiddos to read chorally, maybe it was something like this, use those similar hand gestures. If you had a leveled reader program that you were using, feel free to use those same resources. You don't have to change everything up. However, this is a really important piece. Once again, I'm going to go back and I'm going to refer to my own daughter. Teachers' best intentions. I know parents have these ideas about what school should look like. We need to remember, when we're talking about online school, virtual instruction, it cannot take exactly the same format, and it definitely cannot take on the same amount of hours or time that they're spending in the classroom. This is just, you can find different recommendations everywhere. They're pretty similar. This is a national board recommendation, and it's saying that elementary students should spend between 1 to 2 hours a day with face-to-face virtual instruction, okay? And that includes small group instruction. And you're thinking, how am I going to do that? I'm going to give you some examples. Middle school, 2 to 3 hours, and high school, 3 to 4 hours. So if you have been conducting online instruction already, think about, how do these hours match up to what you're doing? Because remember, sitting in front of that screen for a longer period of time doesn't mean they're going to learn more. Oftentimes, and especially in the case of virtual instruction, less is more. quality instruction over quantity instruction. Okay. So from a really simplistic perspective, let's talk about getting started. Utilizing data to create groups. So we could have a whole additional PD on utilizing data. And I think Corey, Marnie, we have some information that we could share with them if that's something that they were interested in finding out more about, correct?
Absolutely. We've got, in fact, I'm looking for our tips of the day on Slido as well. So I'll make sure to get all kinds of information for you folks.
Awesome, thank you so much. So you're gonna decide on those groups. Remember, just like in person, if we're talking about small group instruction, those groups are flexible. So the groups that you might have this week might be different than the groups that you have next week, and that is okay. Because remember, we are not, oh, I'm sorry about that. We are not basing our group solely on one assessment. It's ongoing formative assessments to drive our instruction. So maybe perhaps this group, they share the same need. Maybe they need help with short vowels. Next week, one of those group members needs help with something else. So they're always flexible. An important piece is you're gonna invite students to 15 to 20-minute sessions. They do not have to be long. What they need to be is very focused and purposeful. You can get so much done in a short period of uninterrupted instruction. You will be shocked. The next really important piece is that you want to allow, I mean, I know time can be tight sometimes, but allow that 10 to 15-minute break between groups for a variety of reasons, right? You have that luxury now. If you add in that time and you go over, what's the worry, right? You don't have a class sitting there waiting for you necessarily, depending on how you do it. But it also allows you that time to regroup yourself between groups. I remember sitting in the classroom and, you know, I'd go from one group to another group to another group. And sometimes by the time I hit my third or fourth group, I couldn't remember what I said to which group, okay? No longer a problem, virtually, depending on how you organize your small groups.
I love what you said about time in between, because I listened to a podcast the other day and he used the word buffer, that we all need a buffer, right? So like you said, for a variety of reasons. And of course, you know, me, I just go, well, what is it in it for me, right? Because as teachers, boy, do we not need a little buffer to like regroup and recenter, right? Is that sort of what you meant too, Carolyn? Or
Absolutely, no, absolutely. Just having that time to breathe and to come back in full force, right? It's almost like how we feel on Monday sometimes compared to how we feel on Friday. And just that 10 to 15-minute break sometimes is all we need in order to come back full force.
That's really powerful. Sometimes we only need, 10, 15 minutes, and that's really, really powerful. Thank you, Carolyn.
Sure. I just wanted to share with you, and I think, let me see, I can go ahead and pop it in the chat as well. Here is a link to this particular document I'm going to open up. So I gave some examples, but here we have other examples of some logistical options for small groups. For this particular one, it shows 3 options. So here we have that the teacher could teach a whole group mini lesson and then send students into individual breakout rooms and ask 4 to 5 students to stay in the main session with you. I thought that's one great way to do it. Option 2, you could do a mini lesson. Maybe they're already prepped with something that they were going to work on independently. You can have them stay in the main session and give students the options to turn off their screens and mics while they write or do any assignment, and you pull a group of 4 to 5 students into breakout rooms. What I like about this that I haven't seen a lot is the fact that I know when I've seen teachers using breakout rooms, a lot of times they even allow their students to just log off and work independently. But what I saw, even with my daughter, was that she'd log off thinking she knew what was going on, and then she wouldn't. So then there we'd be emailing the teacher, and it just, I think, turned into more work for her than if she had just asked them to stay in the main session and to turn off their mics and screens and just pop back on if they needed her. So just another idea. And then the last one is sort of the one I was referring to on the last slide, to set a schedule time to meet with each group. They have the link. They know where they're going to go every day. They know where they're going to go every week. And that is just your preset time. Now, once again, flexible grouping, they might change. So maybe you have some type of small group calendar that you send out at the beginning of each week to tell them where they're going. There's flexibility. Down here, I'm not going to take time to go over all this, but I wanted to provide you with what could this possibly look like, because that's what I hear the most from teachers. That sounds great, but how do I make this work? As you look at this, please keep in mind, quality over quantity. Don't get startled that there aren't 4 hours of instruction going on here. So if you look at the calendar, we start off with our attendance and morning meeting, whatever that might look for. Then we do a whole group ELA mini lesson. This could be a reading lesson, this could be a writing lesson, whatever you are choosing to do at that point. You notice that's about 20 minutes. Then you'll see I am spending my time as the teacher from 8:35 to 10:30, meeting with small groups, 4 different small groups. Each group is slated for a 20-minute time period with a 10-minute break. Okay. So let's think about this for a minute. You're saying, but Carolyn, that's only 20 minutes, right? Think about your own experience. When you want to learn how to do something, or you're trying to learn how to do something, would you rather sit in a huge room full of 30 people and have somebody talk at you more so than talking with you because it's too hard to manage, and just try to get the information you need and then have to go work on your own? Or would you rather have a short lesson that introduces what you're supposed to do, get quality time with that teacher, with that expert, really allow them to know, understand what you know, and truly understand what's going on? When we look at the research, it definitely shows quality over quantity really pays off. And that's what this type of schedule does for you. Notice I put a break recess here, then a whole group math lesson. And then once again, bringing in those small groups for math as well, okay? Down here, I have social studies, science, wrap-up questions, etc. This is very generic based on what your day looks like. Total minutes virtually. I was going to put a number there, but then I figured it would sort of depend on how your breaks went and if you ran over. But what you're seeing here in this schedule, I did add up tentatively, and it came to about 2 hours of face-to-face time with your students. Okay, and you have access to that document. So we talked about some logistics. What is it going to look like? This, it's so funny, it's so simple, and I think that some of us just don't even think about this. When we're doing small group instruction, what's that going to look like? Well, normally we'd be sitting at a table with our students. We can have the same effect with a gallery view on a virtual platform. So what I like about this is it gives you an opportunity to see a smaller group of students' faces, to have that interaction with them. We're not trying to see, 30 students on the right side of your screen while scrolling down. No, you get to see everybody just like they're right in front of you. Now, when you move into the more formal instruction piece, perhaps you are going to have to display something, and you're not going to see everyone at that point, but it still gives you that option when you start. Some really important things to remember as you get started with virtual small group instruction. Always go slow to go fast. Remember, even if you were doing small groups in your classroom already, it is not all going to carry over as far as expectations and what you were doing. So take your time to reteach your students how to engage during small group instruction in a virtual setting. Okay, I used the example earlier. You may need to reteach the visual cues that are essential for choral responses. Like, okay, boys and girls, when I go like this, it means everybody's going to read the next word, or everybody's going to read the next line. What are we going to do if we want to ask a question? We're in this small group. Is it okay if we just pop off mute? Do I need to raise my hand because physically, not just with the raise your hand button on your platform, but because I can see students now? Talk about that. And then, of course, so important, consider how you're going to collect data to drive your instruction. And when I say that loosely. Remember, formative assessments, it can be something as simple as an exit ticket that you used the day before, and you're like, you know what, these kiddos really didn't get cause and effect. So that's what I'm going to do with this group today.
You know, Carolyn, we were just having a little chat on the side about Slido, and what you just said was really awesome. You said use that data to drive instruction, but loosely in that formative assessment sense. So we were having this discussion between like a Pear Deck and a Nearpod, which are very good for slide decks or slideshows. But Slido, I often use for the pulse check or the formative assessment, like, okay, I can tell that we didn't get to cause and effect just based on one polling question, right?
Exactly. So fast.
Data where you're looking. So that might, Jay, that might be a great way to use Slido, like that pulse check. Whereas when you're using Pear Deck, every student is engaged because they're annotating your slides. I hope that makes sense. Carolyn, can you speak to that at all?
No, absolutely. And I think what is so important when you're talking about using formative assessment to drive instruction, I think the thing that hinders a lot of teachers and overwhelms them is that they think it has to be like this test that you're correcting. It has to be more labor intensive. But really, it is exactly what you said, just a quick exit ticket, maybe a question or two. So you can take it and you can, in your mind, say, got it, didn't get it, got it, didn't get it, got, you know, and right away, you know what your students need. It does not have to be something that, you know, is going to take a long time. And because we also know that the most growth is going to happen if we immediately address misconceptions with student learning. And we can't do that if we're pulling a Carolyn when I was a new teacher and taking that teacher bag home with my assessments in it, back to school with my assessments in it, right? I hope I'm not alone, but you know, I did that. And then, you know, a week later I'd grade them and we'd moved on, right? And we know that that is not best practice. And I did learn that. So we want to make sure that we're very timely in utilizing the information that we find out.
Guilty as charged. I did that too. But boy, when we're teaching online, those pulse checks or those, you know, rapid report of, okay, how are you today? All right, let's move on, because tomorrow we might not be in person, right? So
tell me about it.
Good.
I know.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So before we get into the tip number 2, I sort of want to get an idea. When we're thinking about small group instruction, we often talk about how, and we mentioned at the beginning of this session, how in a virtual environment, a lot of times making that connection with your students, allowing your students to make connections with each other, is not always easy. And we're going to talk about how small group instruction really supports that. But before I share with you, I'd like to know what you, maybe at least one strategy or activity, you have used to get to know your students in a virtual setting. Is much different. So once again, you can navigate there using the barcode or the information that Amanda has put in the chat. Oh, look at that. Speedies, perfect. Awesome. Oh, Jamboard, I am a huge fan. Miss Marnie here on the webinar with us, she shared that with me. And I have been in love ever since. Wonderful, wonderful way to get to know your students. Flipgrid, awesome. At the start of it, share something they're grateful for and why. So important right now. I know our team, we've had this discussion, how sometimes we at this particular time in life, we forget that there are still things that we're grateful for. So I love that you're doing that. Greet my students every morning with a good morning song. Oh my goodness. And you know what, Susie, thank you so much. She did what I had said and I didn't ask you to do that, but now you can see why it's so important. So Susie put her name there. So as the teacher now, even though this is virtual and it doesn't give you a specific place to put your name in, I can look and I know that she's the one who made this comment. So thank you for being my example. Good job. Perfect. And Susie, I would love to know, do you sing that song, or is it a song that you're just singing too? If you're actually singing it, I'm really, really impressed.
And Susie has also answered another way of answering Jay's question by asking your students to name themselves. So we talked a little bit of, Slido doesn't have that capability unless you pay for it, but her teachers, right. We know how to get around paying for things.
We do. Scavenger hunt show and tells. Had a student put together a timeline show of the Padlet. Oh, awesome. Love Padlet. 5-minute check-ins, sharing time and calls. I love it. So you have put a lot of really great things in here. Heavy load with instruction Friday. Oh my goodness, I love this. Does everybody see that? One-on-one Zoom time with their students to give feedback into chat. How important is that, right? I love it. Renaming in Zoom with the characteristics about themselves. I'm going to use that. That is awesome. Welcome song. Joke of the day, my favorite. I would definitely do a joke of the day. Thank you so much for sharing these wonderful ideas. These are great. I'm going to go ahead and navigate back. So you've shared lots of wonderful ideas with me. So let's think about tip number 2 when we're talking about utilizing small groups. Use small group time to listen and learn. So we have to think of small group instruction from 2 points of view, right? We are there as the teacher with a very purposeful plan to provide our students with specific instruction. However, another big perk is that we have this time to get to know our students, both academically and personally. And in the virtual environment, you are going to find so much more time and ease in doing this when you're working in small groups. So make sure that you don't always just jump right into teaching, right? Yes, you're going to get to it, but it is okay to start out getting to know your students a little bit. So here you will see talking about building community and fostering those relationships. Remember, it's not only important that you're fostering the relationships between you and each student, but also allowing students to foster those relationships with each other, right? We want to build that sense of community. And if there's something that I've heard teachers, students, every school employee say is that they miss that sense of community. So let's utilize this small group time to do that as well, okay? And I like this quote, students won't treat each other well if they don't know each other. Think about that, right? We always tend to treat people we know, our friends, even better than maybe a stranger on the street because we have something, we're vested in them. They are our friend.
But it's so hard to get to know each other, Carolyn, online.
It is. Yeah.
So we have to be really intentional is what you're saying. Like really, that's why you know, create this space where you're building that classroom relationship. And maybe that means that team building and class building is going to take more time than content.
Absolutely. So I'm glad you said that, Corey. Thank you. At the beginning, if small groups aren't something that you've been utilizing up to this point, it is okay to take the time to use half or even the full time for the first session or 2 to really build those relationships, to just practice the process of utilizing small groups. That is not a waste of time. Teachers are such hard workers. They're so determined. They feel like they can't waste a single second. I am here, and I bet you everybody on here would say that is not a waste of time. Building those relationships and fostering community is so important, even more so in that virtual environment where they don't have the opportunity to talk to their friends on the playground, to go to their friends' houses after school. So yes, absolutely. So remember, listen and learn, not only about academics, but also find out more about your students personally. Then here we have tip number 3. This one is extremely important. We want to prepare with a purpose. We want to be very intentional, okay? So as Corey just said, well, is it okay? Am I going to set specific time in which I'm going to just get to know my students versus going straight into content? Yes, you're even going to be intentional about that because depending on your grade level, if you're anything like me, and I'm working with 4th graders who are great little chatters, and they've gotten very wise, and they know, oh, Mrs. Flora really likes Disneyland. If we talk about Disneyland, guess what? We can make it through the whole 20 minutes talking about Disneyland because she's going to get off task. So we have to be careful, right? We want to make sure that we are very purposeful in saying, knowing that we want to have this time, but not accidentally allowing all of our time to start getting consumed by just that social part. So it's difficult, right? It's a balance. Like, how do we make sure that we're getting in both? Well, it's going in knowing what we want. Okay, and not that that doesn't change sometimes, but having something in mind. Okay, so when we are thinking about utilizing online resources, so we're talking about small group instruction. The first thing I want to say is that if your small group instruction solely consists on you picking up a book, sharing with your students, using a little whiteboard in front of your computer camera to do math problems, showing pictures that support your social studies curriculum, whatever it might be, that is 100% wonderful and appropriate, okay? What I don't want is for you to say, oh, I don't have a document camera. Oh, our curriculum doesn't come with an online version. All of those things. That doesn't matter. It's okay. Because once again, it's not only the academics, it's that connection. And me sitting here in front of you, I can easily share information with you just like I would face-to-face sitting across from you at a kiddie table. So keep that in mind. We don't want excuses. We can do it with whatever we have. However, I do want to share with you one of my favorite online resources. It is actually a free resource. I love it. It's a nonprofit, so it is free all the time. I know that during COVID, there were some resources that were free, and then after a certain time period, they weren't free anymore. That is not the case with Readworks. I'm going to go ahead and navigate over to Readworks. Okay. So if you have never used Readworks, oh, Joy, I see in the chat, Joy loves Readworks. You have never used Readworks, you simply navigate to readworks.org and you can go ahead and sign up. Just like with Slido, all you're gonna need is an email and you'll create a password and you're good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and, actually I'm gonna go back and log into something specific. Let's see here. Logged right in here. So here, as I log into Readworks, you have so many excellent resources. So as you can see, and I know it might be a little small, but over here, you have all different types of content. You have reading passages, ebooks. One of the newest features they have here on Readworks is step reads for differentiation. What it does, it's so amazing. You click on a passage, and then oftentimes it'll give you the option to click on 2 additional passages, same topics, same exact passage really. It's just that they've either made them a little shorter and cut out some of the more difficult words to make it at a lower reading level, or added some. So it is wonderful. The article of the day, I know my students personally, when I use this, they love the article of the day. So another piece down here is paired selections. So oftentimes maybe for writing, okay, we're doing a writing lesson and we want them to write to sources and we want to provide them with sources. Here you can actually find topics and find more than one passage, nonfiction passages as well, about a particular topic. Then you can come down here and see all types of different filters you have, grade, types of activities, fiction, nonfiction, poetry. The other thing you can do down here is you can choose by Lexile level. So if you have a program or you know your students' particular Lexile levels, you are able to find passages that are just right. Then I'm going to go ahead and navigate to the article I found. So I'm going to be pretending that I have my small group of students here with me, and today we're going to be doing a book walk or maybe a first read of this particular story. I chose, so when you choose passages or when you choose stories or books, they have some that are just passages, but then they have others that are actually in the form of an ebook. This particular one was at a kindergarten level. I chose the ebook to start. If I click this little projector up here, I have the ability to make it just the book, and I can go ahead and I can click through and I can go page to page. We could do a picture walk, right? I can point. I could even allow, I could share with my students, allow maybe to have a teacher's helper who becomes maybe a co-host, depending on what platform you're using, and they can turn the pages. Think of how excited they would be with that. I also have the option of planning.
Have you ever seen snow falling before?
Okay.
Have you ever seen snow falling?
So I have that option. Now what I want to show you is I'm going to go over up here at the top, and it says passage. I can go to the passage, and now it's the same story, but instead of being in the format of a book, it is just a passage. But there's a reason I like this. I might want to come back for my second read. So boys and girls, here we are for our second read. We read the story yesterday. It was wonderful. But today I want to look for some specific examples. Okay. I want to look for some examples of adjectives. We were talking about adjectives. So we're going to go through and we are going to read chorally together. And when we come to an adjective, I want everybody to give me a firework and tell me we found one. So we'd be reading along. Oh, here we go. A snowflake is a tiny. The program allows you to highlight, color, and if I want, I can even write an annotation. Tiny means small. Add note. Now, if we come back again later to work with this passage, I can refer to the notes I've written, and I can add more. So with this one free resource, you see you have lots of different options. Any questions about Readworks?
Well, I just want to let you know that this is so cool for me. I was ready to do the book walk or the picture. What did you call it? See, this is the
Picture walk or book, or yeah, picture walk.
Picture walk, right? I was ready to do that. And then I looked at the time. I thought, oh my goodness, we're already 47 minutes in. So please
Yes.
give us your questions. So interesting. Kristen gave us a great tip here. You can set up certain students as ELL in the settings. So that's a cool idea. And then there's another, oh, thank you, Kristen. You put the link in there for us. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, you guys are a plethora of information. So share, share, share. This is what this is all about.
I was also going to say, Readworks has wonderful tutorials. So if you go to the webinars or the teacher's guide, you can watch little tutorials. And Readworks actually comes with free online like you can create a class, you can assign things online, you have that ability to do all of that for free. So if you're in one of those schools that does not have access to online resources, you have one right here.
Oh my gosh. And you said the magic word, which is for free. And Kristen is a first-year teacher, so huge round of applause.
Wow, awesome.
Just appreciate, this is the weirdest first-year teaching experience. I mean, we all have our first-year experience, right? But this has got to be a weird first-year teaching experience. So Kristen, huge kudos to you. If anybody else is a first year, let us know. But that is just a huge, awesome, awesome, awesome. Thanks for being here with us, and thanks for teaching our kids.
That is wonderful.
Let's wrap this up a little bit because I know we got lots of other good stuff to talk about. Go for it.
Okay. So before I have you share our group tool masters, share something that you're taking away. Let's just make sure we covered all this. So today we talked about small group instruction in a virtual environment. We went over why it's so critical for success. So I hope that if you didn't come here thinking that, I hope you're walking away saying, I need to do this in my classroom. And understanding why it's so important to listen and learn and not just teach. Small group instruction allows us to get to know our students, build that community, those relationships. And last but not least, knowing that you need to prepare for small group with a purpose, okay? That purpose can be building relationships, but it also needs to be content. So how are you gonna work that out in order to make a positive experience for students and for you to see the most growth, okay? So if you could go ahead and pop in the chat one thing that you're taking away today. Okay, so you're all our tool masters. What is one thing you're taking away from our session today that you're going to just sort of ponder more, maybe something you're going to try right away? Go ahead and share.
Looks like Readworks is a win. Love that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sophie and Hillary, for sharing. Patricia, okay, Carolyn, Readworks is going to be great. Keeping one group in the main room. Yeah, that was a really great tip, Carolyn. I really appreciated that.
Just a different way of thinking about it, we tend to think that, yeah, that everybody goes to breakout rooms, but I love Slido.
And by the way, Alexander is also a first-year teacher, Carolyn. So you got two first-year teachers.
Oh my
So
goodness.
great. And Slido, Slido's a win. I love that.
Right. And I saw somebody saying that they have a 30 remote and how that's hard. Absolutely. And remember, it's okay. I think that fear, if I can get one thing through your heads today, it's that it's okay to not see all of them all of the time. If you're providing them with quality instruction, that is going to be so much more beneficial than asking them to sit on mute. Small group instruction for my music class. How fun, Alexander. That sounds amazing. Using small groups to build communities. Wow, lots of wonderful ideas in here. Thank you so much. This is just great.
These are really awesome. And Carolyn, I love what Joy said. She said confirmation of what we're doing, right? And I remember that it's a great way to sort of wrap things up, is to just remember that y'all are doing such a fantastic job. This is so hard. And teachers, I think, need to give themselves credit for doing such an amazing job in a very, very tough time of teaching, right, Carolyn? I don't know that you said it a couple times. We tend to take on a lot. We tend to be people who, want to do it all, and then we risk getting burned out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Teachers are hard on themselves. We're overachievers. So wonderful. So just before we close out today with our prayer, if you haven't already done so, we would love you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've made mention to some of the videos we have there, but we have a plethora of great information to share with you regarding a variety of online resources, just some tips and tricks about online teaching in general, some tips for your students. So please check that out. Amanda went ahead and put that link in the chat. I think you will be very pleasantly surprised if you haven't checked it out already. Webinars planned for January, February, and March. Gearing up for spring semester, self-care. How important is that, right? Making sure that we're taking care of ourselves. We are energized. We are ready to go. So we'd love to have you join us for that. Then PBS Learning Media. We were talking about this as a group the other day, and we were so excited. I love PBS. So join us and see what they have to offer. And then in March, we're going to be joined by the GCU College of Education for some wonderful information. So we would love to see you there.
And don't forget, you guys are a part of what we do. So if you want to hear a topic, just let us know. We'd be happy to entertain the topics that are important to you.
Absolutely. And just before we get into that prayer as well, our why, I think it's so important. It is near and dear to my heart. Why we are here, why we do what we do. We are here to empower, educate, and inspire our community. That's you, so that you're able to take action and fulfill your purpose and serve others. And that's why we are so excited when we see people here, and we know that we are hopefully making a little difference in your lives and in your students' lives.